The early life and education of Israr Ahmad, 1932 to 1954. Israr Ahmad was born on April 26, 1932, in the small town of Hisar, located in the Punjab region of British India. His family was deeply religious, with a strong emphasis on Islamic values, which shaped his early worldview. Even as a child, he displayed an unusual curiosity about faith, often asking questions that went beyond his years. His father, a man of principle, encouraged his son's intellectual pursuits while ensuring he remained grounded in traditional Islamic teachings. The year 1947 marked a turning point in young Israr's life. The partition of India forced his family to migrate to the newly formed Pakistan, settling in Karachi. This upheaval exposed him to the harsh realities of displacement, but it also strengthened his resolve to seek deeper knowledge. He enrolled in school, where his academic brilliance quickly became evident. However, his true passion lay not in conventional subjects but in understanding the Quran and the teachings of Islam. By 1949, Israr Ahmad had secured admission to the prestigious King Edward Medical University in Lahore, a dream for many aspiring students. Yet, within a year, he realized that medicine was not his calling. He felt a spiritual pull toward religious studies, a decision that surprised many but reflected his unwavering commitment to his faith. Leaving medical school was a bold move, but he knew his path lay elsewhere. In 1950, he joined the University of Karachi to pursue a master's degree in Islamic studies. This period was transformative. He immersed himself in classical Islamic texts, studying under scholars who recognized his sharp intellect and dedication. His academic work was rigorous, but he also spent hours in private study, delving into the works of early Muslim thinkers as well as contemporary writers. Among the books that influenced him during this time were those by Abul Ala Maududi, whose ideas on Islamic revival left a lasting impression. While still a student, Israr Ahmad began writing articles for Islamic magazines, including Tarjuman-ul-Quran, a publication known for its scholarly discourse. His writings displayed a rare combination of deep theological insight and clarity, attracting attention from both peers and established scholars. He was not merely an academic, he sought to connect Islamic teachings with the challenges of the modern world, a theme that would define his later work. By 1954, he had completed his formal education, earning his master's degree with distinction. Yet, for Israr Ahmad, this was not the end of learning but the beginning of a lifelong journey to understand and propagate Islam in its purest form. His early years had laid the foundation for what would become a remarkable career, one marked by intellectual rigor, spiritual depth, and an unshakable commitment to Islamic revival. This phase of his life, though less known compared to his later prominence, was crucial in shaping his identity. It was here that he developed the ideas and convictions that would later inspire thousands through his lectures, writings, and the establishment of his own movement. The boy from Hisar had grown into a scholar, and the world would soon hear his voice. The early career and association with Jamaat-e-Islami, 1955 to 1971. After completing his education, Israr Ahmad stepped into the world with a clear sense of purpose. In 1955, he began his professional journey as a lecturer at Islamia College in Karachi. Teaching Islamic studies allowed him to share his knowledge with young minds, but he soon realized that the classroom alone could not satisfy his deeper mission, the revival of Islamic thought in society. His lectures were not just academic, they carried a passion for reform, urging students to see Islam not merely as a set of rituals but as a complete way of life. Around this time, he became increasingly drawn to the ideas of Abul Ala Maududi, the founder of Jamaat-e-Islami, a movement that sought to establish an Islamic state through organized political and social efforts. In 1956, Israr Ahmad formally joined the group, seeing it as the most structured platform for Islamic revival in Pakistan. His intellect and dedication quickly earned him respect within the organization. He contributed articles to Tarjuman-ul-Quran, Jamaat-e-Islami's flagship magazine, where his writings stood out for their depth and analytical rigor. For over a decade, he worked closely with the party, participating in study circles, delivering speeches, and engaging in debates. His ability to explain complex Islamic concepts in simple terms made him a sought-after speaker. Yet, as time passed, he began to question some of the movement's strategies. While he admired Maududi's scholarship, he grew uneasy with what he saw as an overemphasis on political power without sufficient spiritual preparation. He believed that true Islamic reform had to begin with individual purification and a return to the Quran, a bottom-up approach rather than a top-down political struggle. Tensions came to a head in the mid-1960s. The ideological differences were subtle but significant. Israr Ahmad argued that society needed a deeper moral transformation before an Islamic system could be successfully implemented. He also disagreed with certain tactical alliances Jamaat-e-Islami made with secular forces, fearing they compromised Islamic principles. By 1965, after nearly a decade of association, he made the difficult decision to part ways. It was not a break born out of hostility but out of conviction. He felt compelled to follow his own path, one that aligned more closely with his vision of Islamic revival. The years following his departure were a period of introspection. He continued writing, now with even greater independence, and his ideas began to crystallize into a distinct framework. He emphasized the need for a Quranic intellectual movement, where Muslims would first understand and internalize divine guidance before attempting large-scale societal change. His lectures gained a new intensity, attracting a growing audience of like-minded individuals who resonated with his message. By the end of the 1960s, Israr Ahmad had established himself as a unique voice in Islamic discourse, one that was scholarly yet accessible, traditional yet unafraid to challenge prevailing norms. Though no longer part of Jamaat-e-Islami, he carried forward the lessons of those years, refining his own approach to Islamic reform. The stage was set for the next chapter of his life, where he would step out of the shadow of existing movements and carve his own legacy. This phase of his journey, though marked by transition, was crucial in shaping his later work. It was here that he learned the realities of organized Islamic activism, the challenges of ideological differences, and, most importantly, the necessity of staying true to one's principles, no matter the cost. The scholar and teacher had now become a thinker and reformer in his own right. The founding of Tanzeem-e-Islami and intellectual flourishing, 1971 to 2002. The early 1970s marked a decisive turn in Israr Ahmad's life. After years of reflection, he concluded that the Muslim world needed a fresh approach to Islamic revival, one rooted not in political maneuvering but in intellectual awakening and spiritual renewal. In 1971, he took a bold step by establishing Tanzeem-e-Islami, an organization dedicated to what he called the Quranic paradigm of change. Unlike other groups that sought immediate political power, his vision was gradual: first, the transformation of individuals, then families, and finally society at large. It was a quiet revolution, built on persuasion rather than force, on enlightenment rather than upheaval. From the beginning, Tanzeem-e-Islami stood apart. It avoided the spectacle of mass rallies, focusing instead on study circles, rigorous discussions, and deep engagement with Islamic texts. Israr Ahmad himself became the driving force, delivering lectures that dissected the Quran with a rare blend of scholarly precision and heartfelt conviction. His Friday sermons in Lahore drew crowds, students, professionals, even skeptics who came out of curiosity but stayed because of the clarity of his message. He spoke not just of rules and rituals but of a comprehensive worldview, one where faith shaped every aspect of life, from personal ethics to social justice. The 1980s saw his influence grow exponentially. With Pakistan caught between military rule and political instability, many were disillusioned with conventional ideologies. Israr Ahmad's emphasis on moral and intellectual reform resonated deeply. He began publishing books that would later become cornerstones of his thought, works like The Quranic Concept of War, which challenged prevailing secular military theories, and Islam and the Secular Mind, a critique of modernity's clash with divine guidance. These weren't dry academic treatises, they were urgent calls to re-examine the foundations of Muslim society. His magnum opus, however, was his Tafsir, exegesis of the Quran, a monumental project spanning decades. Unlike traditional commentaries that focus solely on linguistic or legal aspects, his approach was holistic, connecting verses to contemporary challenges. He argued that the Quran wasn't just a book of the past but a living guide for modern dilemmas, economics, governance, even science. This perspective attracted a new generation of thinkers who saw Islam not as a relic but as a dynamic force. By the 1990s, Tanzeem-e-Islami had evolved into a structured movement, though it deliberately remained small and disciplined. Israr Ahmad resisted the temptation to chase numbers, insisting that quality mattered more than quantity. He established Markazi Anjuman Kudamu el-Quran, Central Organization for Servants of the Quran, to train dedicated workers, emphasizing personal piety and intellectual rigor. His followers weren't just activists, they were students of a lifelong discipline. The turn of the century found him increasingly concerned about global challenges facing Muslims. The rise of unipolar Western dominance after the Cold War, the moral decay masked as progress, and the internal divisions within the Muslim world weighed heavily on him. In response, his writings took on a more urgent tone. Articles in journals like Monthly Misak and Renaissance dissected these issues with surgical precision, offering not just criticism but Quranic solutions. Yet, for all his intellectual output, Israr Ahmad remained accessible. His language was scholarly but never obscure, his examples drawn from daily life. A shopkeeper could grasp his sermons as easily as a professor. This rare ability to bridge the gap between academia and the common man became his trademark. By 2002, 3 decades after founding Tanzeem-e-Islami, his legacy was secure. He hadn't built a political party or a militant group, but something more enduring, a school of thought. His followers spanned continents, from Pakistan cities to diaspora communities in the West, all united by a shared vision of Quran-centric revival. The organization's modest size belied its outsized influence. Its members were doctors, engineers, and teachers who carried his ideas into their professions. This period was the golden age of Israr Ahmad's intellectual contribution. While others chased power or popularity, he had planted seeds of change that would grow in unexpected ways. The quiet scholar from Karachi had become one of the most original Islamic thinkers of his time, not by shouting louder, but by thinking deeper. The Twilight Years, Israr Ahmad's final journey, 2002 to 2010. As the new millennium unfolded, Israr Ahmad entered his 70s, a phase where most men slow down, but for him, it became a time of intensified reflection and urgency. The world around him was changing at a dizzying pace. The aftermath of 9/11 had plunged the Muslim world into turmoil, wars raged in Afghanistan and Iraq, and a growing tide of secularism swept across societies. Yet, amidst this chaos, his voice remained steady, a compass for those seeking direction in turbulent times. Though age had begun to wear on his body, his mind remained razor-sharp. His daily routine in those years reflected a man completely devoted to his mission. Mornings were spent in study, afternoons in writing, and evenings in teaching. His home in Lahore became a sanctuary where students and scholars gathered, sitting at his feet as he unraveled complex Islamic concepts with the ease of someone who had lived with these ideas for a lifetime. There was a palpable sense that he was racing against time, determined to impart as much knowledge as possible. His physical health started declining noticeably around 2005. Years of relentless work, countless lectures, and the weight of his intellectual labors had taken their toll. Doctors advised rest, but rest was a luxury he couldn't afford, not when so much remained to be said. His lectures grew shorter but more potent, each word carefully chosen. When standing became difficult, he would deliver his Friday sermon seated, yet the power of his delivery never diminished. If anything, his frailty added gravity to his words, as if every sentence carried the weight of a lifetime's wisdom. During these years, he completed some of his most profound works. The Crisis of Muslim Thought, published in 2006, was like a diagnostic report on the intellectual stagnation plaguing the Muslim world. Unlike his earlier books that focused on solutions, this one laid bare the root causes with unflinching honesty. Another significant work, Islam and the Challenges of Modernity, offered not just criticism but a roadmap, how to be Muslim in a world that increasingly measured progress in purely material terms. These weren't just books, they were intellectual lifelines thrown to a drowning generation. His correspondence during this period reveals a man deeply concerned about the future. Letters to colleagues and responses to queries in magazines like Misak and Renaissance often carried a tone of solemn warning. He saw clearly what others missed, that the greatest threat to Muslims wasn't external oppression but internal decay. The loss of Quranic consciousness, the blind imitation of the West, the sectarian divisions, these were the real enemies, far more dangerous than any foreign army. As 2008 gave way to 2009, those close to him noticed the light in his eyes dimming slightly. His lectures became fewer, his writing pace slowed. Yet, when he did speak, his words carried even greater resonance. There was a sense of summation in his talks, as though he was distilling a lifetime of thought into essential truths. His final complete work, The Concept of Divine Unity, published posthumously, reads like a spiritual testament, a return to the most fundamental principle of Islam, the oneness of God, from which all other truths flow. The spring of 2010 brought the inevitable. In April, as the flowers bloomed in Lahore, his body finally succumbed. His final days were spent in quiet devotion, surrounded by family and closest disciples. When the end came on April 14, it wasn't just the passing of a man but the closing of a chapter, an era marked by uncompromising intellectual rigor and spiritual depth. The funeral procession stretched farther than the eye could see. People from all walks of life, students he had taught decades earlier, young professionals who knew him only through his books, elderly scholars who had debated with him, all came to pay respects. In death, as in life, he united people across divides. In the years since his passing, his legacy has only grown. The organization he founded continues its quiet work, but more significantly, his ideas have taken on a life of their own. University study circles discuss his works, YouTube channels preserve his lectures, and new translations make his thoughts accessible across languages. What makes his legacy endure isn't institutional structure but the power of his ideas, timeless truths articulated for a modern age. The measure of Israr Ahmad's final years isn't in the number of his days, but in how he used each one. Even as his strength waned, his vision never dimmed. To the very end, he remained what he had always been, a teacher of the Quran, a guide for the perplexed, a voice of clarity in an age of confusion. His physical presence is gone, but his light continues to illuminate the path for those who seek it.